Thank everybody for attending our webinar today on Predictive People Analytics delivered to you by AssetHR. All right, so our agenda today is we're going to introduce you to your presenters, and then we're just going to go through a little bit of an overview as far as what is Predictive People Analytics, and then we're going to go through a nice demo of all the things that People Predictive Analytics can do for you. And then at the very end, we're going to have some time left over for some Q&As. So as we're going through maybe the overview or even the demo, if you have any questions that come to mind, there is a chat option in here and also a Q&A option in here. So please make sure you put those questions in there so that at the very end, we'll have some time to make sure that we get all of your questions answered. All right, so your presenters today, you have myself, Amber Vernew. I am an account manager over here at isolved. And then you also have Sean Salins, who is one of our senior solutions consultants over at isolved as well. All right, so just an overview and just a couple of key pieces that we like to, share as far as predictive people analytics, what it is, what it can do. So it is just, a very powerful analytics tool, hence the name of it. And it does incorporate and connect some key people and data sources. It has a really nice, rich dashboard driven by, some really nice designs. Some features and functionalities that you can do is kind of how you want to see some of these graphs in your actual dashboard within the analytics tool. And then it does include some predictive modeling capabilities for forecastings and any type of like what if analysis that maybe you want to look at. So a lot of analytics tools out there right now do not have the predictive forecasting capabilities out there and any type of what if analysis. Ours does. So again, you can do some type of forecasting and any type of what if analysis. And Sean will kind of go through like what we mean by what if analysis. So you can, put some things into your analytics tool and find out like if I do, a 2% raise, what is that going to do to my workforce? What will that look like for my employees? Will I have any turnover? Will my employees stay? If I do like a hybrid, schedule where they can work remote a couple days, come into the office a couple days, will that help me with some of my retention? Will I have some turnover? So those are just a couple of examples as far as like some what if analysis that you'll be able to do within the analytics tool. Just a couple of things I like to really point out here as far as the overall analytics tool is the dashboard. So the dashboard again is something that is a configurable view with all of the key people metrics centralized and or segmented into one defined user grouping. We do have a voice navigation and a virtual assistant that is out there. I do believe we call her Monica. I'm pretty sure Sean can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you can actually rename Monica to whatever you want. But the nice thing is that as you're working throughout the day, if you have your analytics tool pulled up, you can say, hey, Monica, show me how many vice presidents I have. Hey, Monica, how many, I'm trying to think of some examples here. But so we do have that virtual assistant and voice navigation in there, which again will kind of be nice and save you some time. That way you can continuously work throughout the day, doing what you're doing on your computer and ask Monica for any type of assistance or any type of features or any kind of information that you're looking for within the analytics tool. Again, we do have that predictive modeling. So it uses trend data to plot scenarios that can help you decide some actions that may be best for your business and also your workforce. The predictive guidance will help set targets and results and allow predictive people analytics to recommend some multiple methods for you to achieve the best results that you're looking for. We also have an enhanced predictive analysis in there. So see what factors are affecting future trends and allow you to turn on and off any empty factors that maybe you don't need factoring in there. There is some historical trend analysis in there as well. So trend, the trend will help with some key metrics over your user defined time period. So you can kind of figure out like what type of historical information and how far back are you looking for when doing some of the analysis that you're looking for. Just some overall benefits as far as, the predictive people analytics tool. It can help identify and address small issues that maybe you're having before the opportunity can grow into a large problem. Again, utilizing the analytics tool and the overall trend data that we have within the analytics tool will definitely help you identify any problems that may be taking place at the time. You can see how your company got to where it is, and then even just maybe some needs to be done for a more productive future overall with your workforce and your business. The ability to investigate future and predictive optimal ways to remove turnover and increase profitability. And then we do say that the People Predictive Analytics empowers you to firmly establish the links of critical events and evolving corporate metrics. So it is a very powerful predictive analytics tool for you to utilize within your company. Just a couple of, sample use cases that we like to, throw out there. So one thing that an analytics tool can do, especially a predictive analytics tool, is help you, improve your retention with your employees. Utilizing that predictive modeling capability to help identify any turnovers or anybody that may be at risk of leaving your company, and then helping you put together an action plan to reduce that risk. Again, by using that predictive piece within the analytics tool. And then also, that time saver of the virtual assistant that we have within the system for you to be able to request data, utilize the tool again while you're doing and working on your computer. Maybe you've got other things going on. So being able to ask your virtual assistant to pull some analysis for you will also help save you some time. All right. At this time, I'm going to turn the time over to Sean. He's going to go through a really nice demonstration of the analytics tool. And again, please, if you have any questions during, the demo, make sure you put them in either the chat feature or the Q&A, and we will make sure that we get to all of your questions at the end of the demo.
Thanks, Amber, and thank you all for joining us. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Amber, if you can tell me that when you see my screen?
Yep, I absolutely see it.
Okay, perfect. So as you may all know, isolved People Cloud is what we refer to as an intelligently connected solution. And so this is part of that, or can be part of that if enabled, where you log into isolved, you're able to access this part of the platform called People Cloud Predictive People Analytics, PPA for short. I'm so used to calling it PPA for short. But it is, as Amber said, a very powerful analytics tool. Think of it as a way to really take your reporting to the next level, because it's utilizing the data that's captured, the people data that's captured within isolved, to not just display, aggregate and display the information, but as Amber has already shared with us, to be able to go in and drill down, slice and dice, and even utilize trending and predictive analysis to get answers. So I like to start high level and then kind of drill down into the details. What we're looking at here is an example of a dashboard. You have the ability to create as many dashboards as you want. As a user, my dashboards might look a little different than some other users' dashboards, so you can really customize the experience per user, leveraging the aggregated data from isolved in these different dashboards that you create. Right now, we're looking at what I'm calling my workforce overview dashboard, and this was constructed through a metrics library. So we actually provide you with, out of the box, a number of predefined metrics that you can pull into your dashboard. So if you think of these little charts as dashlets, as they're referred to, that make up the overall dashboard, I simply pulled those in, potentially pulled them in from my metrics library that we supply to you, or maybe I copied them from another dashboard. Where I filtered, sliced and diced information a certain way, and I said, I want that to be part of my workforce overview dashboard. I'm going to copy it from one dashboard to another. Having said that, over here to the far right, we see some details regarding the dashboard. First and foremost, I can filter this entire dashboard a number of ways. Again, we're utilizing the information that's contained within isolved, the people data on jobs, geography, even custom information can be leveraged, and demographic information can be leveraged to pull that detail into your various dashlets and dashboards. You can also, if you're utilizing our attract and hire feature set, you can, and you're tracking candidates and your recruiting efforts, you can pull in that kind of people data, also related to requisitions as well. So you can pull a lot of information and filter on that information. So if I wanted to filter this entire dashboard by, let's say, gender, right? I can deselect my options, choose female, for example, and hit apply. And when I do that, I now have a filter, and you can see how it impacts things like number of employees by department, etc. It was that easy for me to filter this entire dashboard. I can also share this by emailing this information or simply downloading the dashboard as an image file, which is great for great use case there is if you're wanting to include the dashboards that you're creating within PPA in a PowerPoint presentation or a Word document. You can copy dashboards, as I already kind of alluded to. I can take a dashlet or a dashboard and copy it into a different dashboard. And I can share this dashboard information as well with other users. So it's a way to make this information available to others. Now let me go ahead and I'm going to reset my filters here. Now that filter changed from pink back to black, and I've got all my data back because I've reset those filters. The other thing I wanted to point out here from a dashboard perspective is that I can quickly and easily change the parameters of how I'm viewing this data. So right now I'm looking at these dashlets, this dashboard data over the last 30 days. But I can go back in time. I can pull up February 2023 and filter the entire dashboard. Oh, I know what's going on here. Minimize. Move Monica out of the way. So this. We'll talk about the bot here in a moment. She's very sensitive to her name, so I don't want to say her name yet before we get to that part of the demonstration. But let me go ahead and notice I simply selected once I got her out of the way. I simply selected the February 2023, and it shows immediately the results. If I scroll down even further, we see that I can choose other views from a time frame perspective to affect this entire dashboard, from different months over the last couple of years to a rolling 12 months to 3 calendar years, all the way to custom timeframes. There we go. Let me go back to my view of the last 30 days. So bottom line is you have the ability to create one or multiple dashboards, which are a collection of these metrics or dashlets that you can affect or impact, I should say, with a few clicks of your mouse button. But we can also drill into the detail, right? And that's where we start to really see the power of this information or the power of this solution. So let's pick first number of employees. We have 570 employees in my fictional company. My menu options here in this instance with this dashlet that's part of this dashboard allows me to remove this from the dashboard. It allows me to add this to a different dashboard. It also allows me to set alerts. Any one of these dashlets that we see in this particular example of this dashboard, you can set up alerts so that the system is actually notifying you when things change. Maybe it's an alert, in this case, that notifies me when the total number of employees exceeds a certain value or is below a certain threshold. I can also set up periodic alerts where I can be notified when the total or what the total employees are in this case at the beginning of the week, beginning of the month, or custom timeframe, etc. Great tool to use to proactively have PPA notify you of changes or notify you of this information on a regular basis. So alerts can be set up on any one of these dashlets. The types of alerts that you're going to set up relate to the data. So when it comes to like number of employees, you saw what options I had. If I want to set up alerts for number of employees by department or turnover, see if we get some different options. So yeah, threshold alert for turnover, I can indicate that it, or specify, I should say, for the system to notify me when the total, in this case, exceeds or is equal to or below a certain threshold that maybe is a number, a total number of employees turning over, or percentage, as an example. So you see the options change based upon the data that you're viewing. And that's the alerting capability. But there are other options with these dashlets. When it comes to like number of employees per department or turnover by year, more graphical type charts or dashlets, notice that I have some additional options here. So not only can I set alerts and download the image of this dashlet or share this information with others and so forth, but I can also quickly and easily change the chart settings, the chart views. So there are some grayed out charts. That's because the kind of data we're looking at with number of employees by department isn't data that's going to apply to like an area chart or a heat map. But I can easily change this to a pie chart or a donut chart or a line chart, and then simply save that and see the results of that change. Now, what I can also do is I can drag and drop to easily resequence these charts or dashlets or resize these charts or dashlets by simply dragging and dropping. All right, so I have the ability to alter the view of my dashboard. Let me do this. Let me move this, not move her. Let me move this over, and now let me expand it. Right. So now I'm changing the look and feel of this dashboard. But as I mentioned, where the power of this really comes into play is when we start to drill into the detail, start to slice and dice these metrics and so forth. So before we do that, let me just explain what options we have, and again, these options can vary dependent upon the data that you're viewing. So for number of employees in this particular metric, I can drill down and slice and dice. We'll do that. I can also apply some analytics to this this information, number of employees. What that basically equates to is viewing the information over time, whatever that time frame might be. It might be rolling 12 months, might be 3 calendar years, etc. And with this particular example of number of employees, I can also apply predictive analysis, which Amber talked about. We're going to look at all of these in the next few minutes, but I'm going to use some different dashlets, different information to do that. So let's start with number of employees, and let's go ahead and drill down and see what we can do to slice and dice that specific metric. So when I drill into or drill down into a number of employees, I can not only see a graphical interpretation of that number of employees, 570, but I can also scroll down and I can see the records that equate to that 570, those 570 employees. And what that allows me to do is it allows me to drill into the details and actually compare and contrast certain records. So I can select certain records and I can do a quick comparison of those employees. What I can also do with this information is I can choose what columns of data are displayed here, or when I go to compare those employees. What's the use case of this, or for that relates to this? Well, one use case is if you're looking at data relative to making some decisions around, oh, I don't know, promoting certain individuals. You might have drilled down into a certain metric, and now you're looking at or want to look at certain individuals, kind of side-by-side comparison to help you determine who might be best suited for that promotion. And this is, again, a view where I can add additional fields of information to view that side-by-side comparison and compare and contrast. I can also export this information out of PPA as well. Now, I'm going to go back to my dashboard And what we can also do with this information is we can quickly and easily apply different chart views or layers of information. Right now, we're looking at the total number of employees. What if we want to add in, again, some demographic data like gender? Now I'm looking at total number of employees broken out by gender. What if I want to layer on yet another layer, like ethnicity? Just as an example of layering on some additional information and providing you those insights. Now I'm seeing how many females we have as well as males and those folks who have identified themselves as non-binary because we're tracking that detail within iSolve where we can. Now we're seeing that broken out by both gender and ethnicity. But wait, there's more, right? I can take this and I can actually, using my menu options and my time frame, I can take and view this information across a different time frame. Maybe again, I want to go back to February and see what that looks like in February of 2023, or maybe I want to go further down and view rolling 12 months and what that looks like. Maybe I want to add this view to a dashboard. So now I've got this chart with this view on one of my dashboards as a dashlet on a dashboard, or maybe I wish to download the chart or copy the chart into a document. You can do that. I also have settings where I can apply filters. So right now I'm looking at total number of employees by gender and ethnicity, but maybe I want to filter by job, right? Or department, let's say. Maybe I want to see what this looks like if I was just looking at commercial banking and I applied that one or multiple filters. It's that easy to slice and dice the information within uh, our People Cloud Predictive People Analytics. I'm adding an extra P there. But in addition to all the filtering options that you can apply to these different metrics, you also have some setting options. And those can also vary by the type of information you're looking at. So if we think back to where we started with this being a metric that showed us total number of employees, and now I'm drilling down, slicing and dicing. With that type of information, I can also do things like hide bars with no values or change the order and sequencing of this information. But I can also apply benchmarking. And we're going to look at benchmarks um, in a little more detail in an example in just a moment. But what this relates to is the ability to apply third-party benchmarking information to your data. And not only that, but we just rolled out, and I'm sure Amber's going to talk more about how we are always future-proofing our solutions. We just rolled out some benchmarking, additional benchmarking capability called Benchmarking Insights. And that's where we're taking our over 6 million clients that are utilizing iSolved and anonymizing, if that's even the right word, anonymizing the data and putting it into basically what's referred to as a data lake, and then pulling from that data lake into iSolved PPA so that you can use that for benchmarking purposes, comparing your data against these 6 million records that are being maintained in this data lake. So it gives you yet another option for benchmarking. But that said, we do have the ability for you to utilize third-party benchmarks like we're doing here with SHRM and BLS and DCI. And if I wish to apply those benchmarks, you can see how that's visualized here. I'm using DCI diversity benchmarking against my number of employees, and I can see where we are in comparison to that. So for our Asian employees, our male Asian employees and female employees and non-binary employees, we're actually above the benchmark for DCI. If we go over here to our white, non-Hispanic, or Latino male, female, or non-binary employees, we see that we're actually below the benchmark. So maybe we want to look at that more closely and how we can change that situation. But not only can we use the predefined third-party benchmarks, but as you'll see in a little bit, you can also apply what we call benchmark insights, which is leveraging the data that's already within our isolved platform across all of our clients. Again, aggregated and anonymized, if that's even the word, made anonymous, so that you can use it for additional benchmarking capabilities. So before we get into that, let me go ahead and close down my settings menu, and let's move into another example where we can look at not just the ability to drill down and slice and dice, but that we can apply some analytics. And I'm going to use a different set of information. I'm going to go back to my my workforce overview dashboard, and I'm going to scroll down, and we're going to look at turnover, because as I mentioned, analytics typically reflects data over time, and this turnover by year is already providing us that. So we can drill down and slice and dice, but we can also view the analytics or the over time trends that we're seeing here. And so it defaults to a rolling 12 months, but again, you can modify the time frames a number of ways. Maybe I want to look at this over the last 3 fiscal years. Now I'm seeing those trends over the last 3 fiscal years as it relates to turnover by year. Maybe I want to apply, again, some different chart views or change the vertical axis from values to percentage, whatever might apply. So you can quickly and easily still slice and dice and still change the views. Let's say, again, I want to just keep it simple. Well, this time let's do it by department. Let's say I want to see that trend by department. Now I'm seeing over the last 3 fiscal years by department, the turnover. And I can drill into those areas, just selecting any one of the bars to drill into the areas where they're maybe highest. So I can consumer banking back in May of 2023, I can drill into that. But what I can also do here is I can apply some settings. So I can do everything that I've already talked about, right? I can share this information, I can add it to dashboards, everything that we've talked about so far as a capability I can do with this particular analytics, this chart. I can also apply some filters, or like we talked about, but I can, in addition to all that, I can also apply some additional settings. As I mentioned a little bit ago, based upon the information you're looking at, the charts, the dashlets you're looking at, you might have some additional options. So what can I do here with this particular example? I can actually group this by years. So now I'm looking at a view of this information grouped by year. And since you know, we haven't completed some of these years, like 2023, we can annualize this data. So we can see the system predicting what this would look like in an annualized format. We can overlay events. This is, again, a newer feature that we just added. Doesn't look like I have any events with this particular example, but if there's anything being tracked within the system, like you move to a new building or some kind of event that might have impacted this data, you can overlay those events to visualize that information, as well as some statistical analysis, such as a regression bar and compare month to month and so forth. Now, having said all that, let's go back to where we're seeing the results here. And actually what I'm going to do, I'll go back to my workforce overview. Pardon me, I had to mute myself while I sneezed. And we're going to go back to, yeah, I think we want to use, want to go back to our turnover by year, because we want to talk about predictive analysis as well. So where analytics is allowing us to view or visualize and interact with information over time and layer on, again, additional views and filters and whatnot. It also, this example allows me to predict where we're headed looking into the future. And this is where the modeling, the predictive modeling that we've developed comes into play. So what we're seeing here is we're looking at the last 6 months of turnover and the predicted next 6 months, which is kind of flattening out, but there's still kind of a trend where it's going upwards. So we might want to drill in and again, slice and dice to see what's going on there and filter and so forth, because this is going to give us answers. And as Amber mentioned when she went through her portion of the presentation, knowledge is power, right? Having this information, proactively being able to access this information is going to allow you to make business decisions to get ahead of the curve. And that's what we're looking at here as an example or a use case. I want to curtail this slight variance that I'm seeing. I almost sound like I know I'm talking about with statistics, but so I want to be able to curtail this. So what can I do with this information that the system is predicting? Well, it goes back to those what if scenarios that Amber was talking about. First, before we get into the what if scenarios, in addition to all the other features that we've already talked about, adding this particular view to a dashboard, downloading the chart itself and so forth as it is, I can apply settings. And with the predictive analysis, I have some additional options. So I have my filtering options, so I can filter a number of ways, like we already talked about. I can apply a regression analysis. I'm not a statistician, so you on the phone may understand the importance of a regression analysis and what it's all about. I'm not as knowledgeable there, but what I am knowledgeable about is the ability for us to utilize this information for analysis and guidance. And so when we look at analysis, what this is showing us, and it's part of this predictive modeling that we've developed, is that for turnover that we're looking at last 6 months, future 6 months, there are some things that the system that PPA is telling us might have a high, medium, or low impact to the results we're seeing here. And specifically in this example, it's telling us that there is a high impact, potential impact to turnover based on salary and average benefit costs. And then there's a low impact as it relates to some of these other variables, like number of or percentage of remote employees or average commute distance and so forth. So these are variables that could be causing this trend, or that might cause this trend. Because again, this is the system predicting this information. So that's where the what if scenarios come into play. And specifically, it's where we can use our guidance capability to apply those what if scenarios. And if we see that the targeted turnover in December is 19 individuals, right? So because we're looking at values here versus percentage, we could change to percentage if we wished. And that's why this is a gold bar. It's a bar that I can interact with. It's a bar that reflects this 19. So I can do a couple things. I can simply just drag it to change the number, or I can just change the number to reflect the target that we want to hit. So when I do that, what that equates to then is it equates to what needs to happen to hit that targeted number. So let me go ahead and type in the number and hit enter. There we go. So I'm hitting enter, and this is what I wanted to get to, is the details, right? If we want to hit a targeted turnover of 10 people, or we can view it as a percentage as well, like I mentioned, these are the things we need to look at possibly applying or doing in that what if scenario. So it's telling us that we might want to increase the average salary by 25%. If we do that, our modeling is telling us that we'll hit that number of turnover, reducing the turnover to that degree. Or maybe we need to pick up 2% of the benefit cost for our employees, like pay more for our employees. Or maybe we need to apply a different model as it relates to remote employees and increase the number of remote employees by 36%. So allow more people to work from home. Let's apply that model. We can actually apply the model, and by doing so, it is taking that data, it's applying it to the model, and we're seeing how it affects. I don't know if you notice how it affects the trend here. Let's apply this balance model. So it's applying these different options, and it brings it down even a little further. So there's a couple things going on here, and I want to kind of backtrack just to make sure that I'm being as clear as possible, because there's a couple things going on kind of at once, and I don't want to confuse anything. There is the ability to apply models to see what impact that's going to have on the trend itself. But there's also, and closely related to that, the ability to set specific guidance or targets that will then provide you with those suggested um, uh, models, if that makes sense. So it's very powerful way to have the system and the AI help you make decisions. Now, now that's the system doing that for me, so to speak. If I scroll down, and actually let me do this. I'm going to go ahead and close my slider bar there. If I scroll down, we actually see a summary information, which applies back to relates back to those models we were just looking at that we were applying through the guidance feature. This allows me to interact a little more hands-on with the way this model is designed. So I'm looking at this information, and we applied the model, so it filled in all of the fields and applied that model to bring down our turnover. But what happens if I want to interact with this directly? Let's say I want to increase the average salary by 30%. I can actually type in that information and see how it dramatically affects the model. So several different ways in which you can use our modeling through the guidance, through the through setting the targets, and kind of manually, so to speak, by plugging in numbers based upon the model and how it's designed. Now, let's be real. Does it make sense for an organization to give everyone a 30% bump up in pay? Even if it means reducing turnover potentially, that still may not be a good business decision. But that's why we have these other variables that we can interact with. Maybe we're not giving any increase in pay. We're leaving everything else the same, and we see how that then is reflected in the modeling. So instead, let's say, hey, let's bump up the number of people to 50% additional individuals or variation for people working remotely. And let's apply that now and see if that has any impact. And it may still be kind of thinking, so we'll wait for it to kind of think through that and apply the modeling. So in this case, it doesn't look like it had that great of an impact to allow more people to work from home. But again, this is how that modeling can function and really help you get or come up with, I should say, design solutions, potential solutions to what the system, what isolved PPA is predicting. And again, this is just an example of turnover. This can be applied to other factors as well. And we have modeling as it applies to other factors as well. So let's go back to our workforce overview. Anywhere we see predictive, we can apply predictive analysis. So in this case, the number of employees, to number of employees by department, to turnover, to number of employees by job level, right? Kind of seeing that there's a trend there of it's dealing with a number of employees, to number of employee, that's just another variation of that, trends, and so forth. So that said, a couple other things I want to show you, moving away from the predictive piece, some additional features that we've built in and that are kind of recent adds to Predictive People Analytics, or PPA for short. We have, because we track this information in isolved, we have now the ability to visualize the relationships between people in the form of your traditional org charting. Within isolved, you're can define who reports to who, and there's the ability to generate static reports like what we see here, static org chart reports. The difference is here, they're more dynamic or interactive. So we can drill in to see the details. So if I want to view all of Scott's reports. I can simply click on Scott, and now I'm seeing who reports to Scott. If I want to drill in even further, I can select Danelle and see who reports to Danelle. I can go all the way back up to the top, back to Karen, who's the president. I can view any orphaned employees. So not only is this great information to visualize from a org chart perspective, but it also allows you to identify where there might be data that needs to be addressed or corrected. I have 5 orphan employees. That means those are folks that don't have a reporting connection. They don't have it's not outlined in the system. So we need to go in and we need to address that. Who does this person report to? What we also have is the ability with our org charts to view any circular reports. So in other words, Scott, Carlos reports to Scott, and Scott reports to James, who reports to Carlos. Something of that nature. We've got 3 of those, right? We can view that. So it gives you the ability to drill in to see where there might be data points that need to be addressed. So a little bit on the org charting capability. And what we can also do is we can copy this org chart and paste it again like we can other dashboards and dashlets into other documents or dashboards and whatnot. So you can make use of this information within and without, or within PPA and outside of PPA is how I should phrase that. All right. I know we're starting to run short on time, so let me go back to my workforce overview dashboard and speak to a couple other things. Actually, what I wanted to show you was my benchmark dashboard. This is, and I had alluded to this, this is some additional functionality that we just rolled out where, as I mentioned, we are able to leverage our client data, employees that are within isolved, creating kind of like what's called a data lake of aggregated and anonymous or anonymized, I think is the right word, data, so that you can leverage that information for for additional benchmarking opportunities or uses. So what do I mean by that? Well, first and foremost, it's focused on benchmarking of salary, tenure, and turnover specifically. And when we look at this, what we see is a blue line or bar and a gold bar. The blue bar would reflect your data, right? How many of the accounting specialists you have? What's the average salary for those people in those roles in your organization compared to the benchmarked data from Benchmark Insights? So we're looking at all of this information from across all of our clients, pulling from this data lake, this aggregated data, to allow you to see how do you stack up for anyone who's an accounting specialist in your organization to the average salary. And we're seeing that maybe in this case, we're a little bit below that. Whereas for branch operations assistants, we're actually above what that data reflects. So this is another option for you all to leverage data for benchmarking purposes, and that's in addition to the third-party benchmarking that is also can be imported in or made available. So I just want to make sure I showed that to you as well, because that's a new feature that's available. And you can interact with this by basically importing in the data. So let me explain what I mean by that. I can create a new benchmark by capitalizing on my employees' job titles compared to branch manager or something similar within that data lake. And I can even get a little more granular with this by including state and industry if applicable. And then I can save that and add that to my list of benchmarks that the system is looking at. And that would be then reflected on that, that benchmark dashboard we just looked at as well. So the bottom line, the long story made short is, it's allowing you to look at your information matched up against the information from this data lake, right? This aggregation of isolved data to see how you stack up as it relates to this information. So let me go back and we're going to look at one more, well, technically two more, but very much related features within PPA. And it was something, again, Amber mentioned, and that is the NLP, or natural language processing, that is available both through the search bar, where I can simply type in how many female, sorry, my spelling, female managers do I have, so it's kind of filling in for me. Or I can get quick answers. So what's the system doing? But what it's doing is it's basically taking the question that I just asked, and it is kind of auto-filtering, in part, the data, so that I don't have to go through the process of selecting a dashlet, drilling into it, applying the filter, etc., and so on. It is doing it by me simply typing in a question. And the same thing applies to using our friend Monica, which Amber was correct. The bot can be renamed. So let me go ahead and turn on, because I inadvertently turned her off, right? So you can change the avatar type from female to male. You can change the name to whatever you want to name her. And then when you activate her, which we're going to do in a second, go back to a dashboard view here. You can simply ask her questions. Monica, how many female vice presidents do I have in my company? And she will produce the resulting answer. So in this case, it's showing that number per company, it looks like. Because I asked her that. I said, how many do we have, I think, per company? I might have actually phrased it that way inadvertently. So it's another way to get very quick answers by simply using the natural language processing, by speaking the question. And unfortunately, and I apologize for this, she came through my headphones, so you weren't able to hear her. But she did speak to me, and then of course the resulting data is displayed. So that is a little bit on the natural language processing capabilities of PPA as well. I know we covered a lot today, and I apologize if it felt like I was kind of bouncing around a little bit, but there is a lot that we can talk about. We could probably continue to talk about PPA for the next 30 minutes to an hour, because there's so many cool and useful features that are available. But at this point, with the time we have remaining, I'm going to turn things back over to Amber and see if we have any questions that have come through.
I actually do not see any questions in the chat or the Q&A at this time. So I'm assuming we do not have any questions at this time.
All right, thank you, Amber. All right, well, I'm going to stop sharing so that if you have any other slides, Amber, I'll let you share your screen to wrap us up.
Nope, I am actually good. I will just close off with this. If you do have any questions that come to mind, because it happens to the majority of us later on, you get off and you're like, oh my gosh, like now I just thought of this question. Please reach out to AssetHR. They will be more than happy to answer any questions that you have, maybe how to get started or anything that comes to mind later on down the road. So thank you all so much for taking time to join us today. We really appreciate it. And I hope you guys all have a wonderful weekend.
Yes, thank you, Amber, and thank you, everybody.